Enter Father Wilfrey. 6 days ago I got a nice little note from the Dean's secretary asking if I would be so kind as to present myself next Wednesday, day before yesterday, at the office of Father Wilfrey at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, now that was interesting. Dear Diary, I can tell right off the bat that you don't know who this Bernard Wilfrey is, so I'll have to enlighten you. In a word, Pierre Teilhard de Chardin was a Jesuit superstar, and Bernard Wilfrey is ours. Teilhard de Chardin was a geologist and a paleontologist, and Bernard Wilfrey is an archaeologist and a psychiatrist. The difference, typically, is that Teilhard de Chardin is world famous, while Bernard Wilfrey is known to about 10 people, with names like Karl Popper, Marshall McLuhan, Roland Barthes, Noam Chomsky, and Jacques Derrida. Never mind. For those who breathe the refined air of the scholarly Alps, Bernard Wilfrey is a heavyweight. While an undergraduate at St. Jerome's, I wrote a paper proposing that although belief in an afterlife may have given rise to the practice of burying the dead with their possessions, it's just as plausible to suppose that the practice of burying the dead with their possessions gave rise to a belief in an afterlife. The course instructor passed it on to Bernard Wilfrey, thinking it might be publishable in one of those journals he was associated with. Of course it wasn't. But it brought me to the great man's attention, and for a reason I was shown round as a promising youngster at faculty teas. When I entered the novitiate a year later, it was imagined by some that I was some sort of protege, a misconception I foolishly did not discourage. Father Wilfrey may have followed my progress in the years that followed, but if so, he did it at a great distance, and when my academic career began to falter, his remoteness began to interpreted with equal imaginativeness as a withdrawal. In the 5 years since my ordination, until the nice invitation arrived from the dean's office, I haven't heard from him once, and hadn't expected to. Naturally, I was curious, but I wasn't exactly holding my breath. He wasn't going to offer to send me to the ball in a coach and four. Probably he was going to ask for a small favor of some kind. Maybe some folks at St. Jerome's wanted to know something about somebody at St. Ed's, and they said, "Why don't we have Father Wilfrey contact that young Father Osborne who works there?" No one would hesitate to ask me to do a bit of spying for the order if spying was needed. We've had our own private espionage network for centuries and think of it as being not one whit less honorable than that of MI6 and the CIA. We're quite proud of our intrigues, in a quiet way, of course. During the last decades of Elizabeth's reign, for example, our English college at Rheims infiltrated scores of priest spies into Britain to keep the spirit of insurrection alive among English Catholics. Our greatest coup was achieved in 1773, when Pope Clement was feeling some skulks about destroying his old friends, the Jesuits. It was one of our own who showed him down to reason with his tender conscience and get the job done. The order is our homeland, after all, and it would be taken for granted that, even in exile, I would never allow some paltry, dishonest, or partial concern to subsede my loyalty to it. On the other hand, if it was something as simple as this, then a phone call would have been sufficient. The more I pondered the problem, the more intrigued I became. At Father Wilfrey's office. Nothing had changed at Father Wilfrey's office since I'd last visited it some 10 years ago before. It was in the same corner of the same floor of the same building. Father Wilfrey hadn't changed either. Still 6.5 feet tall, as broad as a door, with a massive rough-hewn head that might belong to a stevedore or a trucker. Men like him somehow don't change much till they reach an age like 70 or 80, when they fall apart overnight and are whisked away. I've been around enough brilliant men to know that they're seldom brilliant in real time, and Father Wilfrey is no exception. He greeted me with unconvincing heartiness, made some awkward small talk, and seemed ready to beat around the bush for hours. Unfortunately, I wasn't in the mood to collaborate with him on that, and after 5 minutes, a dreadful silence overtook us. With the distinct air of someone biting the bullet, he said, "I want you to know, Jared, that there are many men in the order who know you're capable of doing more than you've been asked to do." Well, shucks, I wanted to say, but I didn't. I murmured something or other to the effect that I was gratified to hear this, but I doubt if I managed to keep every trace of irony out of my voice. Father Wilfrey sighed. Evidently realizing that he still had some biting to do on this bullet. Deciding to give him a break, I told him, "You've got a different assignment for me, Father. You certainly don't have to be shy about proposing it. You have a ready listener here." "Thank you, Jared. I appreciate that," he said, but still seemed reluctant to go on. At last he said, rather stiffly, as if he didn't expect to be believed, "You will remember the special mandate of our order." For a moment I just stared at him blankly. Then of course I did remember it. The mandate about the Antichrist.